Hi everyone, Lisa here for the Graphics Fairy. Thanks for joining me today. One of my favorite types of journal covers are the deconstructed vintage book covers. You've probably seen these. A lot of journal makers are taking old books like this and removing the pages and just using the cover to make a junk journal. I absolutely love these and I think they're so beautiful, but at the same time, as a vintage book lover and collector, it always hurts my soul a little bit to see old books taken apart like this. So I got to thinking, is there a way to make a very real looking journal cover without tearing apart old books and at the same time allowing you to create as many copies of the original as you would like? And Beth Wallen, one of our design team members, created a cover like this. And if you want to see her finished journal, look on our channel for her botanical junk journal. She doesn't have the how-to in her video, so I've created this process in this video to show you how to do the DIY. So let's get started. So I'm using this image from the premium membership site. It's the only one that I found that has the cover, the back, and the spine of a vintage book, and it's just beautiful. I love this. So I've decided to work with this, but if you are not a premium member, there are also book covers on the graphicsfairy.com, the original blog, and these images are free. Here's an example of one. They don't have the spine in the back, but in this case, I would just make 2 copies of the cover. And then for the spine, I would use a piece of fabric or a piece of ribbon and just glue it on to make the spine. So even if you're not a premium member, you can still use this process to make a beautiful, authentic looking journal cover. So here are the supplies that you will need to get started. You'll need a brush, a pencil, some Mod Podge, a craft knife, scissors, some thin fabric, copy paper, and some cardboard. So let's look at how an old vintage book was constructed. The outside of it is fabric usually, and then the inside end papers are made of paper. So the fabric gives strength to the paper, and this prototype that I made, I did just paper on paper, and you can see within minutes really it cracked right here. So I feel like you really need the fabric to give the paper the strength that it needs to hold up. So this project today is going to include fabric, and so whereas the old books would use fabric on the outside, paper on the inside, we're going to use paper on the outside because that's what our image is printed on, and fabric on the inside, and then we're going to cover that fabric with paper. So let's get started. Step 1 is to just print the image on copy paper in landscape orientation at 100%. So I've gone ahead and done that, and then just trim it out with some scissors. And now we're going to use this as a template to cut our cardboard and our fabric. Okay, I have here just a very thin piece of cotton fabric, and I'm going to just lie the paper down on top of the fabric and trace it with a pencil, and then I will cut it out. But when I cut it out, I'm going to add about ½ an inch extra to allow room for it to wrap around the cardboard and get glued on the other side. But here I'm just making the mark of the original image. Now we're going to cut some pieces from some cardboard, and this is just some corrugated cardboard from a box. And you will want to cut 3 separate pieces. So I just trace the cover. Okay, and now I'm going to mark where that ends. And then I'm going to trace the spine And also mark where that ends because I'm going to draw lines with a ruler. And then a little bit separate, again, trace the back. And mark the end. And then just take a ruler and create the lines for each of the pieces. All right, I'm just going to take a ruler and draw the missing lines for each of my 3 pieces. And then I'll cut these out. You can use either a craft knife or a pair of scissors, whichever you are more comfortable with. Okay, now you'll want to cut the pieces out, and you want to err on the side of cutting them inside the line. So it's better for the pieces to be a little bit smaller versus a little bit larger than your original image. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out, cut the fabric out, and then I will come back to show you how to assemble the pieces. Once you have your 3 cardboard pieces cut out separately, you want to take your spine and just trim it down by about 1/8 of an inch on each side so that it's a little thinner, and you can create a little break between it and the other 2 cardboard pieces. So that's one side, and here's the other. Okay, now I have all 3 pieces of cardboard laid out on my fabric using the original marks that I made as a guide. And then you want to take your printout and just put it on top and make sure that there isn't any cardboard hanging out. And it seems like you have to fuss with this a little bit. It seems like this one right here, it needs a little trim. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that, and then I'll come right back. Once you have everything laid out just right, you can see there's no cardboard showing anywhere here. And you want to definitely have that little gap on each side of the spine. So take your time on this step, and it will ensure the best outcome for you if you really get this lined up really well. Okay, so there, I think that is really good. And now I'm ready to glue my cardboard to the fabric. So now I'm going to mark really carefully the corners of the cardboard so that I can make sure I get this lined up just where it needs to be. And now we'll start the gluing. I'm going to turn this first piece of cardboard over and put on a generous amount of glue with a brush. And you want to make sure you definitely get all of the edges very well and the corners. And then just line up to the marks that you've made and press it down. You'll do that with all 3 of the pieces. Okay, you want to weight this with something heavy and allow it to dry. Okay, the pieces are firmly attached now, so I'm going to apply some Mod Podge just around the edges, and then I'll wrap the fabric around, kind of like wrapping a present, and just stick it down. And try to do this neatly. You're going to be covering it with paper, so it won't show, but if you have a lot of bumps, that will kind of make your paper look messy. So just take your time with this. And also you want to trim all the corners at a diagonal pretty close to the cardboard corner there, and that will help make your fabric neater. On your corners, it helps to do the diagonal piece first, and then do your top, and then do your side. It's kind of a mitered corner. Once you have your fabric stuck down and all of your corners mitered in, then you just want to go ahead and put a little coat of Mod Podge over the whole thing to seal it down and make sure that it's all stuck very, very firmly and very flatly, so that when you put the paper over top, none of these little bumps will show. Okay, I've put my fabric covered piece aside to dry. Now we're going to work on the front cover. So here is the piece that I printed at 100% and cut out. And then because you're going to need a little bit of this to wrap around the cardboard, what I have done is printed out 2 copies of this image at 200%. And also in portrait orientation, and I've glued them together to make this one giant piece of the same color sort of paper to use to glue this piece to, and then it will then wrap around the edges of the cardboard, concealing the edge. I hope that makes sense. So just cut out 2 copies of this. Alternatively, if you have some similar colored fabric, you could glue this paper piece down to some fabric, allow about a 1/2 inch seam all the way around, an allowance, and cover your cardboard with that. But since not everyone might have that color fabric, I've decided to go this route to show you how you can print out the paper that you need as the background. So I'm just going to trace around this, the original image, and then I'm going to allow about a 1/2 inch all the way around and cut it out. So now we're just going to glue this down, and it's best when you're using Mod Podge to put the Mod Podge on both pieces of paper, and then you'll get a smoother finished product without a lot of bumps and ridges and everything in it. If you just do it on one side, then you tend to get a lot of bumps and bubbles and things. So let's take our time on this step. I like to tell you where you can take shortcuts, and then also where you really want to take your time, and it makes a difference if you do. All right, we're just going to stick this down using our marks as a guide. And then I'm going to use a little rubber scraper to get a nice flat adhesion. Okay, and then let that dry. Okay, our paper is dry, so we're going to turn it over on the back. Give it a good coat of Mod Podge, particularly being careful to get all of the edges. Okay, so now we're going to take our fabric covered piece and place it on our paper. You want to turn it over and check the alignment of the spine. That's the most critical step. And then you'll also want to check top and bottom, and you might have to push the cardboard piece around a little bit to get that lined up. Yep, perfect, 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 and good. Okay, so once you have that alignment all set, turn it back over and start turning your edges over. Miter your corners once again. Then check it from the front side and make any little tucks or adjustments that you need to make. Don't worry if the inside is a hot mess like this one, because it's all going to be covered with some end papers. So get this all stuck down really well and then allow it to dry. When it comes to end papers, there are so many options. I kind of like the idea of pink with that really pretty turquoisey blue. So here are some options that I'm thinking about. Here's a pretty blue, and here is kind of a green. Whichever one you choose, you just want to print 2 copies of it and then cut 2 pieces to fit inside of the inside of your journal cover. Okay, so just let that dry. You have your interior covered with the end paper. Your exterior is ready to go. Next week, I'll show you how to add the pages. Take care, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and hit that bell button if you want to get notifications whenever we post a new video. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.